It's Boomerang, the show filled with more hilariously funny thrill-packed cartoons than any other show in the universe. Boomerang brings back the very best cartoons of all time. Boomerang is here. Boomerang will be right back after these messages. Until then, please stare at the TV without blinking. Try it. It's fun. Boomerang is back. Let the outrageous wackiness begin. You're watching Boomerang, the only show recommended by 4 out of 5 boomerang-throwing dentists. Are you howling with laughter yet? Are you overwhelmed with the action-packed action of Boomerang? Well, hold tight. Boomerang. We'll be right back. You're watching Boomerang, right here on Cartoon Network. Boomerang, baby! It's time travel made easy with Cartoon Network. Do I really need to say that Boomerang will be back? Hey, Boomerang is back! Back!
Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
¡Suspendan el fuego!
Boomerang.
¡Soy yo, el relámpago!
Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
¿Cómo estás, Bubú?
Boomerang.
Baby. Esta es la montaña en que nací.
Boomerang. Boomerang. Lo bueno vuelve. Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Estás viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Enseguida regresamos a nuestro programa en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Ya estamos de vuelta con nuestro programa en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Enseguida regresamos a nuestro programa en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Ya estamos de vuelta con nuestro programa en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve. Sigue viendo Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Lo bueno vuelve.
Calling for Boomerang, the Cartoon Network.
Esto es La Hormiga Atómica en Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
That means I love you. Well, now I took my baby for a ride in space. We met a little man with a funny, funny face. He taught us both to wail this way. And nobody digs the word we say. block means I dig you. You heard the word. And that crazy word. And that word you heard. Means I love you.
Ahora Boomerang es el único lugar por cable donde puedes ver a la familia real del futuro, los supersónicos. Domingo en Boomerang. Esto es Los Supersónicos por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
¡Socorro! ¡Socorro!
Ahora yo te exijo soltar a la chica, corpúsculo. ¿Por qué no poderte tú con uno de tu tamaño,
Es lo mismo que yo digo, Rufiancete.
Me estás provocando. ¿Buscas un más recto a la nariz, microbio?
Yo no, pero tú sí, toma.
¡Ay, mi nariz! ¡Mi nariz! ¡Ay, ay!
Sam, bebito, ¿qué te han hecho estos?
Sus dificultades han terminado, linda Artemisa.
Eso para que aprendas, grandote abusivo.
Ya, mi bebito lindo, ¿estás bien?
Sí, Artemisita, mi vida.
A continuación, Don Gato y su pandilla en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Esto es Don Gato por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
Bus Monte Carlo and to never be blue. It's a lot like friends, just keep a saying yabba dabba 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 doo. If you take your sweeties left for Tahiti, we can give you a clue. There's no need for crying, roar like a lion, yabba dabba 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 doo. B-A-D-D-A means bad, D-A-B-B-A means good. Oh, what magic in a word we found by switching the letters around. So if someday the bases are loaded and they're counting on you, you just can't strike out if you'll up and shout yabba dabba dabba, yabba dabba dabba, yabba dabba 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 doo.
Ahora Boomerang es el único lugar por cable donde puedes ver a los Picapiedra. Domingo en Boomerang.
Yabba dabba 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 doo.
Volveremos con los Picapiedras por Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Ya estamos de vuelta con los Picapiedras por Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Esto fue Los Picapiedras por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
Combinado perro, que hasta parece que los han sembrado.
Con todos los problemas que le causan sus socios caninos, me pregunto si Hawk se acuerda que él también es perro.
Miau, miau.
Sí se acuerda. Huckleberry Hound este mes por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
En el viejo oeste, los famosos pistoleros mantuvieron la atención de todo el país. Y en Leyendas y en Canciones, sus proezas vivirán para siempre.
¡Qué bonito es el oeste! ¡Qué bonito es para tirar!
Bueno, quizás no tanto en canciones, pero definitivamente en leyenda. Huckleberry Hound, mañana por Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Esto es Huckleberry Hound en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Volveremos con Huckleberry Hound en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Estamos de vuelta con Huckleberry Hound en Boomerang de Cartoon
Cartoon Network.
Pero le tengo una sorpresa, Inspector Ardilla.
Era yo el jefe disfrazado del sol rosado quien solamente lo estaba probando.
Todo el tiempo lo supe, jefe. Como ve, estaba yo disfrazado de usted. ¿Qué estás haciendo, Moroco?
Quería estar seguro de que si yo era yo.
El Inspector Ardilla, hoy por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
¡Ay! ¡No dispare! ¡Le daré todo mi dinero!
Tranquilos, amigos. El comisario ¡Bing, bing, bing! Ricochet Rabbit ha llegado. ¿Dónde está el espectro? Y bien, ¿qué les pasa? ¿Acaso han visto un fantasma? No hay nada peor que un fantasma armado.
Fairy tales can come true. It can happen to you if you're young at heart. For it's hard you will find to be narrow of mind if you're young at heart. And if you should survive to 105, look at all you'll derive just by being alive. Now here is the best part. You have a head start if you are amongst the very young at heart.
Boomerang. Lo bueno vuelve. Inclusive tu infancia.
There they are, Doc.
You'll return in a moment to the Herculoids.
All called Sandor.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the Herculoids.
It sounds like trouble. Faster, Doc.
On the 1969 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
I am the roughest, toughest white shark ever.
We will return in a moment to Jabberjaw.
Wowie, wow, wow, wow. That's my Jabber. He's a hero.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Jabberjaw.
Here's for me.
On the 1976 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to the Great Grape Ape Show.
I know. I'm sorry.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the Great Grape Ape Show.
Grape Ape? Yep, that's me.
On the 1975 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch.
I'm gonna stop that wheelie if it's the last thing I do.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Wheelie and the Chopper Bunch. On the 1975 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Devlin on the 1975 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
What's going on?
We better find out. We'll return in a moment to the new Scooby-Doo movie.
For the first time in a lifetime career of overeating, I think I'm getting a bellyache.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the new Scooby-Doo movie.
I'm getting more confused every minute.
On the 1974 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to the new Scooby-Doo movie.
See the amazing Shaggy, part man, part chicken.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Back to the new Scooby-Doo movie.
Well, studies show I'm for that. Let's go.
On the 1974 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to the Bugs Bunny Show.
Doggone you, old mean wabbit.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the Bugs Bunny Show.
What's up, Doc?
On the 1967 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
I'll put a stop to that. We will return in a moment to Birdman and the Galaxy Trio. On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Birdman and the Galaxy Trio. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go!
On the 1967 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to Moby Dick and Mighty Mightor. On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Moby Dick and Mighty Mightor. On the 1967 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to Pebbles and Bam Bam.
Bam Bam, just leave everything to me.
Oh, boy. On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Back to Pebbles and Bam Bam.
I hate to say I told you so.
On the 1971 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Nobody fools around with Frankenstein Jr.
We will return in a moment to Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossible.
The Impossibles are ready to do the impossible, Chief.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossible.
Junior, you did it again.
On the 1966 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to the Roadrunner Show.
Beep, beep.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Beep, beep.
Welcome back to the Roadrunner Show. On the 1966 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to the Peter Potamus Show.
Now we really must shove off. Come on, So-So.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the Peter Potamus Show.
Let's go for a spin.
And on!
On the 1966 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Space Ghost.
We will return in a moment to Space Ghost.
Jason's in trouble on Jupiter.
I'll pick you up in 3 minutes.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Space Ghost.
Boy, are we glad to see you.
On the 1966 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
It's Yogi's gang!
We will return in a moment to Yogi's
We
Gang.
messed it up, and we can clean it up.
Let's do it!
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Yogi's Gang.
Last one there is a hungry bear.
On the 1973 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids reporting, sir.
We will return in a moment to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids.
Faster, Wally!
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids.
Sundance 1 reporting in, Mr. Socrates.
From the 1973 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
That's me.
We will return in a moment to Speed Buggy. On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Speed Buggy. On the 1973 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
The master detective who never slips up.
We will return in a moment to Inch High, Private Eye.
Sure. The butler did it. How corny can you get?
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Inch High, Private Eye.
I wouldn't leave here if I were you.
On the 1973 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return in a moment to Hong Kong Phooey.
I don't know what I'm saying, but it sure sounds good.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Hong Kong Phooey.
It's so nice to be recognized and loved.
On the 1974 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We'll return in a moment to Valley of the Dinosaurs.
I think we spotted a trail out of here.
Wow, fantastic, Dad.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to Valley of the Dinosaurs.
I'm not scared of that noisy lizard.
On the 1974 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
I'll get you, Penelope Pit Stop. We will return in a moment to the perils of Penelope Pitstop. Farewell forever, Penelope Pit Stop.
On Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Welcome back to the perils of Penelope Pitstop.
What a pickle to be in.
On the 1969 edition of Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
Volveremos con el oso Yogi en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Dixie y Dixie, mañana por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
Aquí el fantasma. ¡Dino Boy!
Fantasma del espacio, Dino Boy por Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
Esto fue Loopy de Loop en Boomerang de Cartoon Network. En instantes, Josie y sus gatimelódicas. En Boomerang de Cartoon Network. Esto es Josie y sus gatimelódicas en Boomerang de Cartoon Network.
You're watching Yogi Bear on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. You're watching Yogi Bear on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's more of 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
We will return to 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1966 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. As the year 1966 comes to a close, remember to tune in next week for a different year on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. It's 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's more of 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1967 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. As the year 1967 comes to a close, remember to tune in next week for a different year on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. It's 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's more of 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1978 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. As the year 1978 comes to a close, remember to tune in next week for a different year on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. Coming up next, it's more of 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will will return to 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We now return to 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. We will return to 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
NASCAR's newest track.
We now return to 1981 on Boomerang from Cartoon Network. As the year 1981 comes to a close, remember to tune in next week for a different year on Boomerang from Cartoon Network.
And every time it rains, panties from heaven.
Shooby-dooby!
Don't you know each cloud contains panties from heaven?
Shooby-dooby!
And when you hear thunder, don't run under a tree. Here's panties from heaven for you and me. Now come over here, boy. Sam, how about those hills of white? Gigalama hungly. Zumbaloo the Zumbaloo. Oh, Bodley boys, oi. Hey, Baba, ha, boy. Ooh, Baba, ha, man. Woody, woo. I knew I'd get you. Let's go. Let's go. Find your fortune falling all over town. Get pennies from heaven, pennies from heaven, the pennies from heaven for you and me.
Você assistiu Tom e Jerry no Boomerang.
Daqui a pouco, os Quatro Fantásticos no Boomerang do Cartoon Network.
O Boomerang agora é o único lugar na TV por assinatura onde você pode assistir os Flintstones. De segunda a sexta, no Boomerang.
Aí vem ele. Vamos lá. Johnny. Papai, pode, estamos aqui. Vamos pra fora.
Johnny Quest, de segunda a sexta, no Boomerang do Cartoon Network. Estamos de volta com o Boomerang no Boomerang do Cartoon Network. Daqui a pouco, Flash Gordon no Boomerang.
No te los pierdas todas las noches a la medianoche Argentina y a las 22 México en Boomerang. Estamos de vuelta con Tom y Jerry en Boomerang. A continuación, Bugs Bunny y el Pato Lucas en Boomerang. Bugs Bunny y el Pato Lucas volverá en instantes en Boomerang. A continuación, la pantera rosa en Boomerang. En un momento regresamos con la pantera rosa en Boomerang. A continuación, Mr. Magoo en Boomerang. En un momento regresamos con Mr. Magoo en Boomerang. A continuación, Popeye el marino en Boomerang. En un momento regresamos con Popeye el marino en Boomerang. Estamos de vuelta con Popeye el marino en Boomerang. A continuación, los autos locos en Boomerang. En un momento regresamos con los autos locos en Boomerang. A continuación, Johnny Quest en Boomerang. Estamos de vuelta con Johnny Quest en Boomerang. A continuación, los centuriones en Boomerang. En un momento regresamos con los centuriones en Boomerang. A continuación, James Bond Jr. en Boomerang. Volveremos en instantes en Boomerang.
Y sus amigos, seguido por el autobús mágico y después Maya e Miguel.
O show de base volta em instantes no Boomerang.
Duas caveiras se amavam, pelo cemitério elas andavam. Agora meia-noite se andavam, agora os amores estão trocavam. Aí saiu um merengue, o que você está pensando?
Mergulhe nos novos episódios de H2O Meninas Sereias, sábado às 4 da tarde e 9 da noite no Boomerang. Em uma Nova Iorquina na África, sábado às 4:30 da tarde e 9:30 da noite no Boomerang.
Eles pulam e vai pelas árvores e é bem legal. É preto, alguns em marrom, eles gostam de brincar com eles mesmos. Ele é bem animado. O macaco.
Boomerang, o que você está pensando?
Estamos de volta com o show de Básio no Boomerang.
de suite, Scooby-Doo.
Ah bah je mangerais bien un petit sandwich.
Sur Boomerang.
Y'en a dia, oh là encore, y'en a toujours et encore.
Rose et compagnie, c'est tous les jours à 20h35 pour voir avec plus rose sur Boomerang et boomerangtv.fr.
El pantalón. Sí. Amigas inseparables. El sábado a las 21 en Luces, Cámara, Boomerang. Las chicas Gilmore están de vuelta en Boomerang.
Next up on Boomerang.
Miss Stubblebills of your favourite shows all morning. This weekend from 8 a.m. only on Boomerang.
I told a pussycat.
Coming up next on Boomerang, it's Tom and Jerry. Right now on Boomerang, it's a cat and mouse game with our old friends Tom and Jerry. And coming up next, get ready for some fluffy adventures with Puppy in My Pocket. Coming up next on Boomerang, it's Puppy in My Pocket. Don't go away, because right now we have Puppy in My Pocket for you. And coming up next, those bonkers bears on a mission for mischief. Help, it's the Hair Bear Bunch, right here on Boomerang. Coming up next on Boomerang, it's Help, it's the Hair Bear Bunch. It's the Hair Bear
bunch, and they're coming this way right now on Boomerang. And coming up next, lasagna and laziness in the Garfield Show. Coming up next on Boomerang, it's Garfield. Put your feet up, relax, and eat lasagna now on Boomerang, because it's the Garfield Show. And stay where you are, because we're going back to bedrock with the Flintstones next on Boomerang. Coming up next on Boomerang, it's the Flintstones.
Dorothy e o Mágico de Oz. Novo episódio. Segunda, 6h45 da tarde, no Boomerang. No Boomerang. A turma da Pantera Cor-de-Rosa, no Boomerang. Vem aí, Looney Tunes, no Boomerang. Vem aí, Masha e o Urso, no Boomerang. Vem aí, Mr. Bean, no Boomerang. Vem aí, Oddbots, no Boomerang. Vem aí, Tromba Trem, no Boomerang.
Vem aí a turma da Pantera Cor-de-Rosa. Vem aí as Meninas Superpoderosas. Vem aí Barbie Dreamhouse Adventures. Vem aí Ben 10. Vem aí Greasy and the Lemmings. Vem aí Unigata. Vem aí, Turma da Mônica. Não dá pra perder. The Rapples Family, no Boomerang.
O jogo mais longo da história.
O show de Tom e Jerry,
no Boomerang.
Round 998. Você perdeu.
Pelo menos tentando. New Looney Tunes. Novo episódio, quinta, 6 da tarde, no Boomerang. Cine Boomerang começa agora.